Thank you so much for coming. My name is Aaron Walker, and I am the State Director for Count My Vote. And this, with me here, is the lovely Lindsay Zazumbo. She's one of our co-executive directors. Lindsay is over with a gentleman named Taylor Morgan, is over the overall strategy of the entire campaign. So my job, as we'll talk about signature gathering, is to make sure that the signatures are gathered. That's what I'm attempting. Here is Michael Shea, and he's one of our field directors for the Wasatch Front region, and Brent over here is our videographer. So just really quickly, the reason we have a videographer is and you know what, today, as we've talked to folks over the last, thank you for coming, sir, over the last couple of days, we've, you are all very well prepared, and you know exactly what's going on. So we have to hold 7 hearings throughout the state, and they're also required to be recorded. And we provide the recording to the Lieutenant Governor's office, and that office will put it up on their website. So as you make comments tonight, just so you know, because some people do get a little skittish about being on camera, we do have to record it, and it will be in the public domain. So just fair warning on that. Hey, listen, and this is sincere from our team. Whether or not you like what we're talking about tonight, and I respect your opinion, but we're genuinely glad you're here. And I mean that sincerely. I personally believe that it's a good thing to increase the political discourse in our state. And if we can talk about politics tonight, and we might not come away with an agreement, but at least we've got people talking about it, and I think that's a good thing. So tonight, let me just tell you a little bit about what we're going to do. Lindsay and I are going to talk. We have a PowerPoint presentation. We've trimmed it down. It was short, and then it got really long, and we've tried to shorten it back up because, frankly, it was a lot. So I hope the goal is we're going to talk for 20, 25 minutes, and then we're going to hear from you. We'll open the floor, we'll listen to your comments, we'll talk, and then we'll pack up. But we appreciate and respect your opinions, and we're happy to listen. Just a couple of, I don't want to call them ground rules, please don't, but I think something that will make it easier and faster is if you just let us get through the slide deck. And we would be happy to listen to you and your concerns. But do us a favor, and just let us get through it. The other thing is when the question comment period comes, I really think it would be great if we can keep it positive. If there are people in the audience that for whatever reason have different views, some of our hearings, the public has started sniping at each other, and I don't think that's necessarily constructive. So let's try not to get back and forth within the audience, and just be respectful of everybody's views. So, hey, thank you so much for coming. With that, I give you Miss Lindsay Zazumbo.
Thank you. Well, I want to reiterate what Aaron said. We appreciate you coming out tonight. I know that this is sometimes not the funnest thing to do, but we appreciate you coming out and listening to a side of an issue that you may not agree with. I have a feeling a lot of people in this room don't agree with us. And that's okay. As Aaron said, we're here to present our side. We filed a citizens initiative petition, and that's exactly what this is. It's something we're taking to the citizens to see how they feel about it, to hear how they feel about it, and to put it on the ballot so that everybody has a chance to vote. We're not here to force something upon people that they don't agree with. We're simply presenting a side that we believe in. And so with that, I appreciate, again, everybody being here tonight. We'll kind of just roll into this presentation. Aaron mentioned that we'll wait till the end to do question and answer, but this is kind of a small group, so as long as we're respectful of each other, if you have any questions as we're going, I think it's an appropriate amount of people to kind of just interrupt and we can have a conversation as we go. So, all right, sounds good. So Count My Vote, our main goal is to broaden participation. We are hoping to open up this system so that everybody who is a registered voter can participate. That's our mission. That's our statement. It's as simple as that.
Am I right in your way?
Just room are delegates currently?
So one, I'm sorry, 1, 2,
Two?
3?
Or have been in the past, maybe not currently, but or have been elected in the past. Great.
No. Ma'am, we're not going to attack anyone.
No, I just want, yeah, I'd just like to know who I'm talking to.
It helps us understand the level of familiarity with the current system.
I mean, the people that really check out the issues and study them.
Okay?
Yeah, that's great. So as you know, our system is a caucus convention system. So we have caucus meetings where you go to your caucus meeting, you elect a delegate, and then that delegate goes to state convention and they represent the people of their district, where they then vote on the candidate that they think should proceed to the final election. If a candidate at the state convention receives 60% of the vote, they automatically go to a final election. If a candidate doesn't receive 40% of the delegate vote, they then go to a primary election, which is opened up to all registered voters. And then the top 2 vote getters in the primary election go on to the final election. I assume there's no questions on the current system. Great.
So I think it's fair to say, and I think it's absolutely fair to say that there are some good things about the caucus system. And there are some positives. And as these say, you know, and as I think a lot of people really love, they love that they get to have that great interaction with the candidates. You love that Orrin Hatch might call you on your birthday, especially during a campaign. Or Mike Lee might call you during the convention system to say happy birthday. Can I have your vote? And that you get to interact with your neighbors, and that you have a good political discourse with your neighborhood. There's a lot of belief that this prevents the flyover, but a lot of people concerned with when we talk about this flyover is that the rural counties just don't matter. And actually today we had a big talk in Vernal about maintaining the party's platform and agreeing on that platform and sticking to it. And the potential to limit the influence of money in elections. So we're not here to dispute. Those are positive points.
I also just want to say my husband, who has been a delegate and who's been a ledge chair, so this is certainly not us. I mean, delegates are some of the most informed citizens in the country. They take the time to vet candidates. As you said, I don't want to call you up, but you said, you know, I take the time. Absolutely. I've been involved in the caucus system for a long time. I've seen how it works, and delegates take the time. They are the best of our nation's citizens, hands down. Some of the realities when comparing the system and how the delegate system works is that there is a barrier between the candidate and the voters, and that barrier is the delegate. So if I am not a delegate and I want to speak to my Senator Orrin Hatch, there's a barrier between us. And he only cares about what his delegate has to say. He doesn't care about what I have to say as a general voter. Delegates are elected by their neighbors. We believe that that the caucus attendees, attending the caucus, can exclude people, and that's based on that one moment in time. So if you can't go to your caucus on a Tuesday night, if you're traveling, if you're a mom, if you're a military, if you're a missionary, there's 100 different reasons. You get in a car wreck, your power steering goes out on the way to the meeting, like happened to us. You don't get a chance to participate. You're simply excluded from the system at that time. Rural voters are currently underrepresented in the system. We'll go over those numbers in a moment, but right now, rural voters, rural counties, over 70% of delegates are on the Wasatch Front. Delegates currently don't represent Utah voters. Side-by-side comparisons show that the top issues that are important to delegates are not the same top issues that are important to voters. There's not that representation. Money has a lot of influence in the caucus system.
I think this is interesting, is what Lindsay was saying, and just to kind of echo and hearken, as it were, back to our mission is to increase voter participation to all Utahns. All party delegates only are 0.002 of the state's population. If you just look at the Republican state delegates, it goes up to 0.006. If you're a Republican or a Democrat delegate, you have the opportunity to get a ton of mail, maybe a wheelbarrow's worth, and tons of phone calls and all sorts of things. Now, I've never been a delegate. I've ran a couple times, and I always end up being the captain, the precinct or district captain. I keep trying to get out of that, but I would like to have more interaction with the candidates. So, from my point of view, I would like to have more interaction, and I feel like if we made it available to all Utahns, that would be a possibility. So, I'm not necessarily engaged by a candidate, and by the time I get to go to maybe the primary or general election, the majority of the decisions have already been made at the convention level, and my voice isn't necessarily heard. Okay. Next slide.
So these are the exact numbers. When you break out the current GOP state delegates, 72% of delegates live along the Wasatch Front, what we call the urban districts in Utah. 28% of them are rural. So there's the flyover notion. The rural counties don't have an equal representation currently. 60% of GOP state delegates vote secure the nomination again. So 60%, you break that number up into that 72% of urban, you can see where the decision is being made.
You want to talk about this one?
Yeah, this one is so Utah Foundation did a delegate survey in 2010. They did it again in 2012. We represent both numbers here. So in 2010, Republican delegates ranked improving the quality of K through 12 education 11th among the 22 issues surveyed. 11th. It wasn't even in their top 10 issues. In 2012. As in 2012, Republican delegates were the only group to not rank improving education as a top 5 priority. Every other group in the state, so Democratic delegates and all registered voters, ranked improving the quality of education as the #1 most important issue.
So we talked a little bit about money. This is just some interesting facts, just a factoid as it were. In the last year, in the Republican Party, the convention, I'm stumbling on my words, there was more than $6.5 million spent at the convention. At the convention. For 2,400, almost 2,500 delegates. If you do the math, it's over $2,700 per vote. Those are numbers that suggest that money does play an influence in the caucus system. And it is susceptible to money.
I want to ask a question right here. Is it legal possible?
Yeah, please, fire away.
Where do you get that number of 2,183 delegates? And what you said that was last year's convention? It was close to 4,000.
Not as
so you're right. So
at the Republican.
Right. So there's 4,000 Republican delegates. Not all of them made it to convention, first of all. And then second of all...
Exactly, but it was more than 2,483.
Right.
It was like 3,500 made
right,
it to
this
convention.
is 60% to get...
So where did that number come
That's
from?
the 60% threshold.
That's the 60% threshold of the 4,000.
Okay,
and then this number, the 6.5 million, this comes from the filing reports that all candidates have to file in the convention cycle. So Utah has its own unique cycle, where we have a convention cycle that is separate from our other, so you have a primary cycle, you have a general cycle, we also have a convention cycle. And this number, the 6.5 million, was pulled from those disclosure reports.
And those disclosure reports are on file with the Lieutenant Governor.
So this was not just, the $6.5 million was not actually spent at the convention. This was all of the candidates running and all of the money they spent.
It was all Republican Party campaigns in just the convention. Yeah, it's its
up
own
through
cycle.
the convention. So,
Just the
so if
convention
there was
cycle.
some advertising on radio or television or mail
Right, but-
flyers, that is included in this figure.
Yeah, but just in the conventional, not in the primary, not in the general. So it's just, we have our own special cycles
through
just
the
for
convention.
convention.
Do
So,
they have the cost
Okay.
of just the primary system?
So that's still a little deceptive.
It's very deceptive.
Because it
That's
infers
fair,
that the
right, they
6.5 million was spent on those 2483 delegates.
And it wasn't.
And it
Well, no, but
wasn't.
that's,
it was spent on, so this would make you feel better if this said 4 and this number went.
Well, it's just deceptive. The
25.
inference from that
That's
is that that
extremely
money got
misleading
spent on
and
those people. It's not right.
Okay, we'll move on to the next slide. Thanks,
Okay.
appreciate that feedback.
so one of the reports that we sourced, and this is just kind of another tidbit from the Utah Foundation. All they said, and political scientists and the foundation said, look, an election system can either encourage or hinder participation. We are simply advocating for a system that encourages greater participation. Willis, I promise we'll hear you out.
Definitely. We'll stay here all night.
Lindsay will stay here all night.
He needs a ride home. So we believe this problem is unique to Utah. Utah is unique, and this problem itself is unique to Utah. Utah historically has a high rate of voter participation. We used to be in the 1960s, we were top 5 in voter participation. Now, and we have a graph to show us, we've now dropped to the bottom 10. Utah consistently ranks #1 in the nation in community engagement, volunteerism, and involvement. We're a well-educated state. We like to get involved, we like community service. That typically translates in statistics to voter participation, not here in Utah. Utah socioeconomic indicators should correlate with that. No, you're good. No, you're perfect, actually. So this is the graph that shows our participation versus the nation. So in 1960, we were in the top 5. We've since, as you can see, just a dramatic decline. We're now in the bottom 10. To me, this is just nothing to be proud of. Whatever's happening, whether you think it's the current system or you think it's an unengaged electorate, whatever it is, that to me is a problem.
And this is just a quick timeline that shows kind of Utah versus the U.S. So over here in the United States, in 1870, very much closed. If you were a white landowner, you could vote. Fantastic. However, as we got through into the 20s, women started to vote. In 1961, we let D.C. vote. I don't know why. I don't know why our 5 is all messed up, but in 1965, we then had the Voting Rights Act. We lowered the voting age, and then we made it easier for military members to vote. And then in 2002, we had the Help America Vote Act. So our premise is that the country has done a fantastic job of going from a more closed system to enabling voters in the country. And we argue that Utah has done the exact opposite. In 1870, it was fairly open. We had mass meetings. Then we had direct primary. Then we got into the caucus convention system where the threshold was 80%, 60%. No, this is 60, thank you. I don't know why that says that. And then just this last year, the delegates, we worked on proposing some change, and the delegates voted against more participation and opening it up. So for those of you who hate what we're talking about tonight, this will probably set you over the moon. But our belief and our position is that we have a major barrier in participating in elections in Utah, and that's the conventions caucus system. It's antiquated, it's restrictive, it's exclusionary, unfair, and the least accountable system in the country.
100 years ago, this system made sense. This is not how people work anymore. This is not how we communicate. We've modernized our elections. We have elections, we have vote by mail, we have absentee voting. Unfortunately, the caucus system, it doesn't have any of those systems that have opened up voting. It's stayed the same. So it's antiquated. It's time, we believe, to modernize this, to open it up, to make it easier to participate in the system. It's the most restrictive system in the nation. And I know, I'm a Utahn, born and bred. I know Utahns hate when we compare ourselves to other states. This is simply a very academic view of how our system works. In order to, we're actually the only state in the nation where you can preclude a primary election simply a caucus. We're the only state in the nation that does that. There are 7 other states. Am I jumping ahead?
No,
I'm
you're
sorry. There are 7 other states that still use a caucus convention system, but they are not a binding system like ours. And in order to, 40% of the vote forces you to a primary. Highest barrier of entry, you have to get 60% of the vote. If you get 60% of the vote, you move right on to a general election. I'm repeating myself at this point, not reading the slides, go for the gold.
Go ahead. So last night at our hearing, it was interesting. So the point of this slide is, this is where we think that people are excluded. Military members who are serving abroad in Afghanistan, Iraq. And just so you know, sir, for those who are taking pictures of the slides, this is available online. So you can pull it from our website. I think tomorrow morning it'll be available. So just in case. Anybody who is working or serving away from home, I travel a lot out of town for work. Rarely in town, much to the chagrin of my wife. And also LDS missionaries who might be serving. Parents who aren't able to leave their children, working Utahns. When we had our press conference, we had an interesting guy who spoke. He was an emergency room doctor. And his point was, there's a huge healthcare industry in the state. And the majority of doctors, firefighters, policemen, they're not able to participate in the caucus system because they're not able to attend that cottage meeting. And they would like the opportunity to participate in a direct primary.
So the system, we have underrepresented groups in the system. There are 2 major groups of underrepresented, and that's youth and women. Currently, the system is made up of 75% of males and 25% females. That's the current delegate breakdown right now. Democratic delegates fare a little bit better than GOP delegates, but right now, women vote at a higher rate than men, yet are severely underrepresented in the current system. 63% of delegates are 45 or older, so we're missing a huge contingent of the youth in our system, which I think is always a problem when you're looking at young voters cast 15% of ballots and only represent 2% of all delegates.
So the other day, someone asked us, why now? Why now? Why are you doing this now? What's so important? And folks, we're here to tell you that we've been working on this since 2006. We've been working on it for a while. First, we approached the state legislature and talked to them about different ways we could open up the system, make it a little bit more participatory for all Utahns. And it didn't go anywhere. I understand that. All of our legislators, and let's be honest, I think we have a great state legislature. They're smart, educated, and I think that they do their best to represent people across the state. But they were also elected in the caucus system. So it's hard for them to say, no, we're not going to change that. Then we went to the parties. We talked to the chairman of both parties, and didn't get anywhere. And so that is why we feel that this initiative is our last chance. But I want to be really clear, by the way, about what we're doing. We're talking about right now just gathering signatures. We have to gather over 102,000 signatures across the state from Logan to Kanab and east to west. All we're saying tonight is let us get it on the ballot. Let's let all Utahns have a choice. Let them choose whether or not they want to keep the system. Go ahead.
One thing I will note too, in the caucus when we went to the political parties, is that this last convention that were held in May, a majority of the delegates voted to change and reform the caucus system, but they didn't have the 2/3 supermajority in order to move that vote forward. So there is support within the system to see modernization of the system. Count My Vote is proposing moving to a direct primary. A direct primary, we believe, will help facilitate greater participation. It allows all voters to participate in the system. It improves candidates' access to the primary election ballot. It preserves the power of the political parties to select their nominees. It reduces the potential for fraud and election irregularities. I will speak on this point for a moment. Depending on where you go to your caucus meeting, they're held differently. Some people, the way they write their votes down or they check you into the meeting, if they're held differently at every caucus meeting, there's irregularity across the state. We believe that by moving to a direct primary, it will help regulate some of those problems. And then it will remove those systemic obstacles to the state.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts. What are we proposing? So right now, what our proposal is that if I want to run for Congress, I can go as a registered in my party, so as a registered Republican, and in my congressional district, I have to get 2% of the total registered voters' signatures. And then I can take that and file that with the county clerk and then be placed on a primary election for my party. The Democrats have a little bit different. They have an open primary system. It's a little bit different. But for the Republicans, I would then be placed on the primary election ballot. Now, the caucus convention system still meets. What they do is they have an opportunity to formally endorse a candidate. And then they have the opportunity to publicize and promote their preferred candidate. I'm still on the ballot, but maybe Michael is the GOP's preferred, I doubt it, but would be the preferred candidate. And then you go on, of course, whoever wins the primary election goes on into the general and represents the party in the general election. So as you can see, I'm sorry, let's go back just 1 second. You still as a convention delegate member have an opportunity to choose and endorse and name the party's preferred candidate. So just a little note, I keep getting all the little notes, the tidbits. So some people have said, well, this is just like California. That's not true. We want to just make sure this is not California's system. This is a primary by party, not willy-nilly. I think that's important to note. And we do have partisan primary elections, and that keeps that there.
So we wanted a threshold, the 2%. So you might be wondering where that's coming from, how that will work. So we wanted a threshold to limit non-serious candidates, to only non-serious candidates. So we didn't want like the California model, which is an open primary where anybody can get on the ballot, and there's maybe 40 plus people on the ballot. This, you have to be serious. You have to file for office, which is like $483 or something. And then you have to go to the registered voters in your jurisdiction, and you have to gather 2% of the signatures of your registered party where you're seeking to go on that primary ballot.
Yeah, so our general counsel, the gentleman who helped write this initiative, they did a ton of research, and they found that states that have this similar model, some of them have 1%, some have 5% for signatures. We felt that 2%, we believe that 2% is a number, as Lindsay said, that keeps it to the serious candidates.
So just really quickly, this is sort of just an example so that you can see, you're like, what does that mean, right? Like, what does 2% mean? So if you're running for a statewide office, let's say you're running for governor, in the GOP, you would have to get, and this is based off the 2% voting, so 11,500 valid signatures. Those people have to be registered within the party in which you're seeking to run. And if you're running in the Democratic Party, it's 3,000 signatures. If let's say you're running for the House seat, you're running to represent a House seat in Carbon County. If you're running as a GOP candidate, you're looking at about 200 signatures. So you go there. The direct primary election, as opposed to proposed by us, it would not eliminate. I think we've touched on this. It would not eliminate or prohibit what are called caucus meetings, also referred to as organizing meetings. I think it's important to note that the role of political parties is to help elect their candidates. that's my baby. The role of political parties is to help elect Republican candidates and help elect Democratic candidates. That would very much still be a play in the stage, even in the direct primary. Political parties could utilize a system to endorse candidates. So if you want the institutional support, if you want the endorsement, the money, the help, then you would still go through that organizing meeting, still go through the caucus system in order to get that. Utah State, just to get in the weeds a little bit, Utah State Constitution dictates how elections, they can dictate how elections are run, but we can't dictate how the parties hold those elections. So for instance, that's why we have two different primary systems in Utah. The Republicans have a closed primary, which means you have to be a registered Republican voter in order to participate in their primary. Democrats have an open primary, which means that anybody can participate in their primary system. Utah State Constitution says that nobody can tell parties how to run their elections, and this proposal does not touch that.
So this is pretty much our last slide. What we did was our council sat down with the 15 former bar association presidents in Utah, and they said, will you review this language and just let us know if it falls in the constitutionality of the Utah State Constitution. And all 15 agreed that it's clearly constitutional. I think it's important to note that of the 15, not all of them liked what we were talking about. They didn't support it, but they said it is constitutional. So that's just a little note. And that's it. So Taylor is one of our executive directors. Lindsay's here, and this is me. And please feel free to email us, talk to us, let us answer questions if you ever want. We're more than happy to answer your emails or talk to you anytime about what we're doing. And that's it. So I'm not sure what the best way to do it. This has been one of our smaller crowds, so I think it would just be better to have a conversation. Let us hear your thoughts. Fire away, sir.
I have about 5 or 6 issues here that I have questions about.
Well, let me ask you this. As a group, is it okay if he goes through those 6 issues, or do we want to go back and forth? But okay. I just want to be respectful of everybody's time.
First, you made a comment that some people can't get to the primary because they're traveling or whatever. Well, that means you can't get to the caucus. Well, I have the same problem with the primary. If they can't get there, they can't get there. That's irrelevant.
Well, you can still absentee and vote by mail in a primary.
Yeah.
Well,
so
okay, you can absentee.
Yeah.
Sure. So let me throw a point out on that one, sir. So I'm born and raised in Utah, but for 6 years I had the detriment of living in California.
So did we.
Just, I was drugged,
So
kicking and
California has a
screaming.
better
Let me just talk for a second. I went on a Mormon mission to Missouri, and my family has always been politically active. And I really appreciated the fact that in the primary election, my dad was able to send me a primary ballot. And that even though I wasn't in the state, I was able to participate in the primary. And I think that's important. So I understand. It's
still going to happen under the caucus system. When you get to the primary, you have the same option all of us do.
The caucus?
After the caucus, we have a convention. And after the convention, there's an election, and everybody gets to vote.
Right, but not in the primary. That's all I'm saying.
Only if there's a primary.
If there's a primary,
And if there's not,
you're able to
we all get
participate.
to vote.
Right.
Our troops in Afghanistan, troops across the world are then able to participate in that system.
Unless Obama puts his block in front of it.
No, they
I'm
don't.
sorry?
Unless Obama puts another block.
Presidential ball.
But think about the children. It said, can't children you couldn't come? Children came to our caucus. She
Yes,
has
they
a
did.
child crying. Come on.
Yeah, but we both, this is just a perfect example, we both could be participating, we both could be running right now. No way he's gonna last
bring
another
your
3
child.
hours. No way, he's about done in 20
Okay,
minutes.
so what's another one of your points?
You're claiming that under the primary system I'll have a voice. I don't see any voice for me whatsoever under the primary system. Right now I can go to the caucus and have this discussion, make my voice heard, and that person will take my voice to the convention. On the primary system, I get no input to anybody. It's whoever can buy the mass media is gonna put all this stuff out in the air, and people are gonna vote for the image on the television and not on the issues.
Oh, okay, but given, well, I promise we'll let anybody who wants to pipe in, we'll hear you. Okay, but leading up to the convention, wasn't there a ton of advertising?
Yeah, but I still have my say-so. I went to the.
No, I understand, but
organizing caucus.
just
Okay,
make
that's
it a
great.
point.
Let's move.
Okay,
That's
number
a
3.
fair point, Alex. Let's move on to your next one.
So ask me the question again?
No.
Let's do number 3. It's fine.
Making the choice of who gets to run. You said under the system you're proposing, the caucus convention has the opportunity to endorse a candidate at the convention. That means somebody else gets to choose, and all we get to do is endorse that choice. But we don't get to choose. We only get to
You get
endorse.
to choose in the primary election.
Yeah, under your primary system.
Yeah,
We don't
you
get to
would
choose a candidate. You get to choose the candidate, and we're stuck with it.
Me and you get to choose the candidate.
Not under the primary system.
Well, okay. Help me understand.
The elite chooses the candidate on the primary system.
No, look, help me understand. No, I really, please. I'm not trying to argue. I don't want to get into a huge argument. I'm trying to understand your point.
I came from California, all right?
Okay.
The most corrupt,
Fantastic.
one of the most corrupt states there is. There's a few worse.
Outside of Chicago.
Yeah. But in California, I never had any kind of voice whatsoever. I go to my representative and talk to him, and it was like talking to that wall.
Okay.
Okay, and I didn't have any choice about next time around who got to be on the ballot.
Okay.
The Republican Party, decision makers, the elite, what do you want to call them, they chose those candidates. And only voice I had was yes or no at the primary. All right, but I didn't have any say-so whatsoever about who gets to be chosen. I never got to say, vote for Aaron. I want Aaron to be on the ballot. There's no chance.
Okay. Okay. What was
That
your
bothers me.
Okay. What was number 4?
Can I ask a question?
Let's let him
No,
finish.
it's about his, I need a little
Okay.
clarification.
Okay.
Okay, you're saying that at the primary, you said anybody who gets 2% of the vote, or 2% of the registered voters to sign, they could be in the primary election. So that means whoever's voting gets to pick during the primary who's going to win that primary election, correct? And the only thing the party can do is say, this would be our preference.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Am I right?
That's
okay. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Great.
Last one, you said that the primary system, I don't remember how you said it, but referring to voter fraud. Under the primary system, voter fraud is a piece of cake. Under the caucus system, because it's local, everybody knows everybody. And when you go to the polls, they know you. And it's really hard for somebody to come up and vote for John Doe who's been dead for 15 years. Because they know everybody there knows he's been dead, all right?
Thanks,
So
I appreciate that.
your system doesn't prevent voter fraud in any way.
Well, thank you for your comment,
That's a
sir.
great comment. Thank you.
And ma'am, I kind of cut you off. Were you going to say something?
No, that's okay.
I'm sorry.
Let me first say that I am 100% for this.
Okay, thank you.
Having been a delegate and having been the chairperson for my district, I have seen the caucuses railroaded
Okay.
districts. When there were only maybe 8 people who showed up and 6 of them were friends. So who are they going to pick as a delegate? They're there in mass to pick a particular person. And that person will vote at the convention the way his particular group wants him to vote. Not necessarily his district.
Okay.
Great,
Thank you for comments. Ma'am, I know you've been chopping the bit
Well,
to
the
talk,
neighbor-
so.
I think the neighborhood people select those delegates.
Okay.
And it's up to us to get the neighborhood to come to the table. Now, last time,
I think our
the caucus
really
were over 400 people. They were standing in halls. There were some of their children. I mean, we were represented big time. Far more than having a party machine inside the candidate. Because I think the party machine is always who pick the candidate, and we get to vote or not.
Okay, thank you.
And there's something else on 1937 to 1947, when we went to the primary,
Yeah.
voter turnout dropped drastically.
Yeah, it is unfortunate that World War II and the Great Depression affected our
Come on,
turnout.
there's always
Sir?
In the states where this system is operating, which party controls the state?
Is it
That's a good-
Republican, is it Democrat?
So there are, among them, I think there are 38 states that are, the governor and the major part, the legislature are of the same parties, and they still have far higher voter turnout than we do.
And it's pretty split even between Democrat and Republican states.
Oh, did we misunderstand the question? I'm sorry. Is that what you were asking?
Well, basically,
Okay,
the
I'm sorry.
2% program that you institute written into this law benefits one party more than it does the other party, because if you look at your numbers there, it showed that a Democrat had to get very few votes or signatures on his nomination as compared to the thousands a Republican would have to get. For example, in Emory County,
Well, I don't know if you know this, there's thousands of more Republicans in this state.
I know there are, that's what that's my
Okay.
point. In Emory County, for example, there are 300 registered Democrats. There are 1,800 registered Republicans. So who's this going to benefit? It's not going to benefit the Republicans. It's going to benefit the Democrats way down the line. It looks to me like this is an attempt to turn everything over to the Democrats. That's my perception of it.
Go ahead.
But then in the general election, especially in Emory County, the Republican's going to win no matter who the Democratic nominee is. So even though the Democrat only has to get 300 signatures, he's still going to be running as a Democrat in the general election. And let's be honest, he's going to get trounced.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily.
Well, I
Yeah,
Let's move on.
Good
Sir,
point, though. Good point.
did you have some enough? Anyone? Sir, please.
I lived in Pennsylvania for 50 years, and we have a direct, as you wish it to be,
Okay.
primary. And the party machines, both sides, controlled who was on the primary.
That's right.
Even if there were 2 or 3 people, they got to pick them.
Was that because there's a convention where they, I'm
I'm
honestly
not sure
asking.
exactly how
So
they did it,
is it because the
but-
party formally endorses one candidate at a convention? I don't know, I'm asking.
I'm not sure,
Okay.
clear on that.
Okay.
But I know that if you weren't endorsed by the party, and 2 or 3 seem to be endorsed by different members of the party or different branches,
Okay.
you weren't going anywhere because they got the money.
That's right.
And the other thing was, the rural areas died on the vine. They weren't represented at all. You only had to control 2 or 3 of the biggest cities, Philadelphia being one, and you controlled the whole state politically. You got all the money, nobody else did. Fly over, had a meeting.
Thank you.
They were corrupt.
Thank you.
I was just gonna, I lived in California since 1947 until 2004, so I grew up with the primary system. And exactly what you're saying is what happened. And as far as increasing the voter turnout has dropped there year after year after year. The kids don't go out and vote. Part of it's because of in the educational system, they don't teach them how voting is important. They really don't. And so,
Ask a high school 18-year-old, what's a caucus?
no idea.
And it's one ear and out the other, they have no idea.
Yeah.
And that's a problem that the caucus system has.
Sir, let's let this gentleman, were you?
Generally, but since you called on me, let me ask you a question.
Okay, fire away.
If our legislature is made up of such intelligent people, and you presented this to them and they rejected it, can you tell me why that happened?
Because, I mean, respectfully so, I mean, you know, they have to get elected by the system. So they're not going to come out and, you know, I mean, we're actually respecting where they're standing right now, and that is that.
So they don't have any integrity, is what you're saying?
No.
No.
Actually,
I don't know, is that what you're saying? I mean,
No, that's what I'm asking. I mean,
did I say that? Okay.
They're telling me they're intelligent, but they rejected it. I don't understand. If they're intelligent and they rejected it, I'm curious.
sir,
to
I
understand why
can't presume to speak for the legislature, but I would suggest that you would be able to call or email your
So you
representative
don't know
and
the
ask
answer to
them.
the question?
I don't want to speak on their behalf. I think that's a fair answer. You'd have to ask them why they don't support it.
The rural counties in Colorado that want to secede from the state because they're not represented, they got a primary system.
Okay.
election is, you're saying that as it is now, the military, while they're overseas, they don't get a vote?
Right.
I've been a registered voter for every election since 1972, and I've only missed one election for president in that time. I was stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and I missed I couldn't vote because the computer rejected my registration the day after registration closed. So I was disenfranchised. Not because I was in the military, but because their computer screwed up. Okay? And you're saying that the people, the military overseas in Afghanistan can vote?
By absentee ballot, yes.
Yeah, they can. Who's going to send them their ballot?
They can request it online, they can have their
They
family
don't have-
send it.
they
There's
don't
a number
have
of
time.
avenues for,
They don't have time
It
to
has
sit
to
down and
come
say,
from the-
okay, wait a minute, I got a primary election coming up back home when there's bullets flying over their heads.
sir, I
And
understand your point, but
even when they're just in a training base here in the States, the military are busy folks. They're working 24/7.
okay.
And as I was stationed from place to place, I registered and voted where I was, because that's a whole lot easier than receiving an absentee ballot. And using the excuse that the military can't get to their voting, to their caucuses, well, I've lived in Utah since 1969, and I've heard of, in that entire time, when I wasn't in the military somewhere, I've only heard of a caucus meeting one time, and that was when this lady called me, or stopped by my house last year, and said, "There's a caucus meeting coming up." I says, "A what?"
So you lived
So
in Utah since 1969?
Off and on.
Off and on, and you had never heard of a caucus system?
No,
I
I
think
know the caucus system.
I think that
I
makes-
didn't know Utah had a caucus system.
I would argue that that makes our point.
The point is,
That if you don't know about
the
it, you
only-
can't participate.
So you
you
could,
never hear on the news or you never hear it in an announcement on the media, there's a caucus meeting in Price coming up next week. Salt Lake City on the news, you never hear, there's a caucus meeting coming up next week. But
Thank you.
last night, I heard on the Channel 5 News about this meeting here today.
Okay,
Now,
that's
why
fine.
is that meeting on the news, this meeting on the news, and not the much more important caucus?
I wish I could control the media.
Well, I'm not saying you don't. I just got a question.
Okay, thank you. Those are great comments.
The
Thank
local
you.
newspapers cover the caucuses all the time. They always announce them.
Who
They've
reads
always
the
been-
newspaper
they-
anymore?
I'm sorry, but they're there all the time. I've been to them. Just
Who goes online?
I do, Will.
Every time I go near the computer, it goes fuzzy.
Okay, so, that's fair. Thank you for your comments. I appreciate them, sir. Is there any, I think we've heard from most areas.
oh, I've got lots of comments.
Fire away.
I'll just start with.
By the way, your twin brother, I'm not kidding, was in Vernal today. A gentleman that looked, do you remember?
Yeah, I was just thinking.
You look, do you by chance have a brother that lives in Vernal?
No.
I'm not kidding, this guy,
I got a brother that lives in California and one that's retired from the Pope, working down the street from the Pentagon.
okay.
And he's halfway between Westbury, Virginia and Costa Rica.
I really did have to take a double look.
But he's emailable.
Okay. Fire away on your comments.
Two questions I've got. How do we pick the best candidate? Now, the reason why I'm asking that is how do we go about picking the best candidates? Because the state of Utah has been recognized many times recently as being the best ran state in the nation.
I hadn't heard that.
Well, it's
I'm
out there.
sorry, I was trying to be funny. I was trying to be funny.
You're even facetious.
You're 8 o'clock at night on Thursday.
And the baby's crying. But how do we go about picking the best candidate? Is this primary idea in terms of how you, because you're proposing in your citizens initiative to have a 2% threshold. So only 2% of the people sign, and you didn't come up with where that number is based on, is because what I understand is based on the previous election's participation.
It's based on registered voters.
Or registered voters, because registered voters and
Yeah.
participation is not the same.
No,
It's usually,
registered voters.
so we're talking about, we get 2%, and how do we go about getting that? We're gonna go out and have people from Acorn going out there and saying, hey, sign this petition, and so.
Do you know about Acorn signature gatherers in Utah? Seriously? In
Some of us
Utah?
are
Acorn?
educated.
I hadn't heard that Acorn had mobilized in Utah.
No, they don't do it here, but we know about it.
No, I'm saying, as in.
I haven't
Democratic Party
actually
wants to
been
put
here.
one here in Carbon County.
Been
They said
here.
that in the last meeting in this room.
Okay.
But at any rate, but how do we go about getting the best candidate? Now, it's a name recognition thing. How do you get name recognition in terms of Joe Schmo is a run-of-the-mill person, but he's got name recognition? How?
How does he
did
get
you
it in
get
the
that?
caucus system?
Pardon?
How does he get it in the caucus system, may I ask?
In the caucus
It's his
system,
neighbors.
he's got
How do
the
you get
delegates.
signatures as a candidate?
Pardon?
So you can also get signatures face to face, right? So we can agree
No,
that it's
as,
similar.
you were proposing that somebody goes out and gets signatures, and by getting signatures gets directly onto a primary.
Yes.
What I'm saying is, as it exists, you've got a caucus system, neighborhood people get, precincts, neighborhood get together, they pick a delegate or two or whatever, and those people meet and vet the candidates. If the candidates don't do well with those people, you're saying, okay, this is exclusionary, but on the other hand, are we talking about people that are dedicated, concerned, committed? Because T.C. Mitz, the common man in the streets, he doesn't know what the heck's going on. Like this gentleman here didn't know what a caucus was. But the people that are from the caucuses, they meet the delegates, as delegates, they meet the candidates. The candidates are asked questions, they become vetted. And when you get 20, 30 delegates in an area, and they're firing questions at this guy, you can find out who's the fraud real fast. But if you're looking at, we're gonna go out and gather up a few signatures, and we can jump the whole system and skip the convention and come down on the primary, then how are we picking the best candidate? By voting? So T.C. Mitz, the common man in the street, he automatically knows the details that delegate has been charged by his precinct and the people that he's representing or she's representing? Is this going to end up being a better picking of the candidates? Because you have to look at, now you just made the statement that the legislature is not in favor of this idea. But you're also implying that because the legislature came up through this system, that therefore that's a negative? I don't think that's a negative, because we are the best ran state in the in the nation. So does this improve the picking of the best candidates? Why the president pro tem of the Senate, Harry Reid, because we didn't have a better candidate to run against him? Well, now let's take that back here to the state of Utah. Do we have good people in the legislature? How did they get there? And is this system proposal going to get better people into it? I can see some deep pockets buying some name recognition.
Great, thank you. Those are great comments.
Okay, another comment.
Okay.
What ties the candidate who claims to be Republican to the party platform and the party name and the party brand? If you go get the signatures, because you made the statement, ma'am, you made the statement that by having a 2% threshold, you eliminate the non-serious candidates. Well, let's have a 10% threshold, and let's get real serious about it. Because if you look at, because you made the implied and
Is that what a primary election is? I'm just asking if more voters are voting for that person. than raising the threshold at a primary.
No, you're
More
saying
people are
2%
candidate.
gets you qualified to get on the primary.
Right, by their registered party, so that's what makes them a Republican candidate.
No, that doesn't
The signatures
necessarily make
have
me a
to come
Republican
from-
candidate. All I have to do is say, I want to be a Democrat this week. I can go down and change my registration to be Democrat, and I can run as a Democrat from Carbon County. And Carbon County historically has been a hotbed of Democratic activity. Historically, that's slowly changing. But what I'm saying is, down the road at primary, I don't have to be a Democrat.
You do.
All I have to do is, now,
you do.
because you said in your opening comment,
Okay,
in your
let's
slides,
be careful about putting words in my mouth. We can clarify and understand that
Okay.
maybe we hadn't disagreed, or maybe we didn't quite understand each other. You have to be a registered Republican to sign a petition of a candidate seeking to be on the Republican primary ballot.
But does he
but
have
what
to be
does the
Republican?
candidate have to say?
He has to be
He
a
has to be a
registered
registered Republican.
Republican.
Okay, I'll change
For
mine.
how long?
How long does it take me to change that tomorrow? I can go down to.
So you're, okay, oh, I think I got it. I think I got
What
it.
I'm
So are
saying
you
is,
saying-
well, I'm talking about
so-
the Dino Rhino thing.
So you're saying that, hypothetically, let me just make sure, I think I've got it. So what you're, I need some caffeine, people.
Not this late.
No.
5 o'clock rolls around early in the morning.
Okay, so you're saying that hypothetically, I know that I can't get through the Republican primary because I am this is all theoretical.
I'm
Not
not a
a
good
schmuck, but
politician.
let's say a moderate Republican. Okay, a moderate Republican. But because I know I can't do that, I'm going to go and change my party affiliation,
Not
and
necessarily.
then well, I have to
I'm
do
saying that
Democrat.
this is a possibility.
Yeah, we're talking. This is. I think I'm stating your.
What I'm
your
saying
statement.
is,
so I'm gonna go
times-
change my thing, and then I'm gonna go get signatures and run as a Democrat.
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
That's a
Okay,
possibility.
so I have to then go through the Democrat primary.
Right.
Okay, so if I win, then a moderate Republican Democrat is then running against a conservative Republican.
Okay.
Do you really see that happening?
I see
Honestly,
that's a
that
possibility,
is-
and when you
I'm
introduce,
lost.
when you bypass the caucus, when you
All
bypass the caucus.
right, I think,
delegate-
This is how we got
let's move on. I think
This
that
is how
everyone
we
got
got
a chance.
Mike Lee and Jason Chapin, by going through the neighborhoods, getting the people behind them. We've got two fabulous people in Washington, thank God, because there aren't very many.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so I think we've heard from everybody. I mean, we've been, I think
Our-
everyone has had a chance. to
Our
comment.
problem is we're going to get kicked out of this room by the school.
No, you won't.
They'll just charge you.
Okay, so.
Well, unless you're
You
paying.
can run by the hour, and if they're getting, it's a fast
So I
meeting,
think
if
at
it
this
runs
point,
over.
we've heard from everybody. If there's people who have not talked, if you would like to, I think we should take that time. But those who have spoken, let's just be respectful of everybody else's time and move forward. I think we all understand where we're coming from. So if there's anyone in this room who has not spoken and would like to, I will give that opportunity at this point. But otherwise, I think everybody's been heard from. Yes?
I'd like to be heard from.
Again.
Please.
Yes.
Couple
Okay,
of
please.
questions. If we have 10 people that turn up in the primary as Democrats or Republicans, and you vote for those 10 people, what percentage of the vote is going to put that one candidate in
Great
the
question.
general election?
That's a great question. The top two vote getters move on to the general election ballot. So the top Republican and the top Democrat move to the general election ballot. Great question, thank you. Okay.
That was the second question too. Who is funding all this campaign? Who are the people behind it that are putting the dollars into this campaign?
We have lots of Utahns who have come forward and put money up and have decided that it's time for change and are
Like who?
monetarily supporting it.
Like who?
You can get all of their names on the Lieutenant Governor's website. It's all public record.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I will say, and you probably won't believe this, but for us it was pretty great. Last night at our hearing at Salt Lake Community College, a gentleman walked up and just, I have no idea who this guy is. Just what did you call him? CC Mitts?
They're
Joe
coming down the
Blow.
streets.
Gentleman on the street, Joe Blow, walked up and gave us a check for $500. Just an average guy who said, "I believe in what you're doing. Thank you," and walked off. No idea who this guy is. So we're. Well, he signed his. I didn't see it. I actually have his check.
I'll take it.
Lots of checks.
All right,
party.
I think
Yeah.
we're-
That's a
so you
check
wanna
with
say
the
something,
governor
I
owns.
understand that.
In this county, if anybody wants to be elected, usually they have to be a Democrat. And some of the Republicans do that. They go, register as Democrats. In actuality, there are
And they're Republicans.
they're Republicans. And
Well, I'm
that-
moving down here as a lifelong Democrat. I'll be moving my zip code.
I got another
Says
comment.
that so you can vote here or there.
And I got another comment. In the last general election, Utah didn't matter how they voted. By the time, Utah, it was over. I don't like that electoral system because, if we would have had a direct ballot system to elect a president, we would have gotten the right person in.
Thank you, I
That's-
appreciate that.
that's-
Yes,
oh,
that's
thank
an
you.
entirely separate issue, but that's a great one, thank you. So I think we've heard from everybody, I don't mean to be rude, but at this point, I think everybody's made their case, so if anyone, so thank you for coming, it means a lot from us, for you to show up tonight and for us to hear from you. I have business cards, they have my cell phone on it, just don't call after about 8:30 when my baby goes to sleep, but otherwise, I'm always available and would love to hear from you personally. So thank you again for coming, with that, we'll end the meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, and again, really, for those of you who don't care for what we're doing, or those of you who do, we really do appreciate you being here. Drive safely. Thank you so much.